We tend to think of high intelligence as something, well, loud and obvious, solving crazy complex equations on a whiteboard or winning every single argument. But what if the true signs are actually much quieter? Today, we're diving into the subtle psychology of a genuinely smart mind and how it really processes the world around us.
So let's start with a little scenario. Imagine you're in a conversation, you've just made a point you feel pretty good about, and someone calmly points out a flaw in your logic. What happens in that split second? Do you pause and reflect? Or do you feel that specific, uncomfortable silence? The kind where your chest tightens up and your first instinct isn't to consider what they said, but to find a flaw in them.
And that feeling gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. Psychology is super clear on this. Intelligence isn't just about what you know. It's all about how you respond when you find out that what you know is incomplete. It's about being willing to just sit with that uncomfortable idea that your own thinking has boundaries you've never even seen before.
This leads us right into our first major idea, what I call the certainty trap. And it's fascinating, really, because sometimes the things we mistake for intelligence, like this rock-solid, unwavering confidence, are actually cognitive traps that are working against us. Okay, so the first trap is the belief that you are right most of the time on almost everything. If that sounds a little familiar, it's worth taking a look at because highly intelligent people, they tend to carry around this quiet, persistent doubt. It's not a doubt that paralyzes them, but it's like a little door in the back of their mind that's always cracked open to the possibility, I might be missing something here. Psychology actually has a name for this whole phenomenon. It's called the overconfidence bias, and it's a truly wild counterintuitive idea. Basically, it suggests that when your understanding of a topic is actually pretty shallow, your brain just doesn't register the gaps. It sees what it knows, and it just stops there, feeling totally satisfied.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The less you actually know, the more complete your knowledge feels. But on the flip side, the more you truly understand a subject, the more you start to see its incredible complexity and all the things you still don't know. That feeling of absolute certainty, it's often loudest where our understanding is thinnest. Now, the next trap is really closely related. It's when you actively avoid changing your mind. This happens when we start to attach our beliefs to our identity. When an idea becomes a part of who we are, hearing evidence against it doesn't feel like learning anymore. It feels like losing. And changing your mind feels like a deep personal failure. So if those are the traps, what's the antidote? How do we get out of that rigid way of thinking? Well, it all comes down to a set of habits that really define an open and flexible mind, which is exactly what we're going to look at next. This slide just lays out the contrast perfectly. On one side, you've got that closed mindset, right? It's all about protecting the ego, holding on to wrong ideas. It mistakes that feeling of certainty for actual clarity. But on the other side, you've got the open mindset, which actively updates its beliefs with new evidence and sees changing your mind as a sign of growth, not weakness. And this leads to a super simple but incredibly powerful habit. Genuinely intelligent people are completely comfortable with three little words: I don't know. And look, this is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intellectual humility. It shows you're aware of just how much complexity is out there in the world and that you have an honest grip on the limits of your own knowledge. This all ties into a really core concept in psychology called cognitive flexibility. This is a huge marker of advanced problem solving. It means you treat your beliefs not as these fixed concrete parts of your identity, but as flexible mental models. So when new, better information comes along, you don't waste energy defending the old model, you just update it. Okay, so we've covered how intelligent minds react to the world outside. But what's going on in the inner world? Some of the most telling habits are the ones that happen when nobody else is even watching. Now, at first glance, these might just seem like little quirks, spending a ton of time alone, talking to yourself, maybe overthinking really minor details. But from a psychological standpoint, these are often signs of a highly active cognitive system that is just constantly at work. For example, talking to yourself? Turns out it's not so strange after all. Psychologists call it self-directed speech, and the research shows it's a pretty powerful tool. It actually helps the brain organize thoughts, improve focus, and even strengthen working memory. It's kind of like narrating your own thinking out loud just to keep it all on track.
And that need for solitude, it's not about being antisocial. It's about giving the brain's prefrontal cortex, that's the part responsible for all the deep, complex thinking, the quiet space it needs to do its job.
For a lot of high IQ individuals, constant social interaction can feel really draining because it pulls them away from that absolutely essential internal processing time.
So, how do all these internal processes actually show up in the real world? Well, this brings us to how intelligence manifests in our interactions through things like curiosity, humor, and just really keen observation. You can think of this process like an active engine that's always running. It all starts with curiosity, this relentless need to ask why and how. This then drives observation, where an intelligent mind will often just quietly gather data before they even speak. And finally, all that data gets fed into analysis, a constant search for patterns to make sense of the world's complexity.
And here's a fascinating one, humor. Having a sharp sense of humor, especially for complex or witty jokes, is a serious workout for the brain. I mean, think about it. To get a joke, you have to recognize a pattern, see how it's being broken, and then connect seemingly unrelated ideas, all in an instant, like witty wordplay or irony. That requires you to hold two different meanings in your mind at the exact same time. It's really no surprise that studies find a real, measurable link between high IQ and advanced humor processing.
So, as we start to bring all these different pieces together, it becomes pretty clear that the true mark of a high-functioning mind isn't about the sheer volume of facts you've memorized. It's about something much deeper, something way more alive than that. The true signs are the processes themselves. It's the humility to admit you don't have all the answers, the persistent curiosity that just keeps you learning, the cognitive flexibility to update your views, the self-awareness to actually examine your own thinking. And then, underneath it all, there's this constant, quiet search for meaning and understanding.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The most dangerous thought is not, I don't know enough. It's, I already know enough. The moment you decide that, that's the moment you stop growing. The most intelligent minds are the ones that never ever let that thought settle. They're always students, always aware there's more to learn, more to understand, in more ways they might be wrong.
And that really just leaves us with a final thought. True intelligence isn't some fixed trait you're born with. It's a series of habits you can actually practice. So the question isn't just about which of these patterns